Now, ever since I took up landscape photography a good few years ago now, I have always loved coming out and shooting in the rain for a good few reasons, really. It's quieter out and about, you know, I find it's really immersive with nature. You're getting battered by it. But most of all, I find you get some wonderful conditions for landscape photography. But as we all know, it's tough, it's difficult. And I wanted to take the opportunity in this week's video to try and share some of my advice of how to get better photographs out in the rain in these sorts of conditions and how to keep yourself motivated. It's a nice gaff that, isn't it? What a gaff! Conditions are really nice, it's lovely and dramatic. This is exactly why I love coming out in the rain to enjoy some landscape photography, because of the drama and the mood. It is just brilliant. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about, if you watch this channel regularly, you'll probably know what I think is so important, but this is probably the most important thing. It's got nothing to do with what's in my camera bag, and it's got everything to do with the stuff that you're wearing, your personal protective equipment, your PPE. So waterproofs, hiking boots, hats, gloves, anything, especially when you're out in the rain, like anything that's going to keep you dry, man. And this is all just so you stay motivated. You know, it doesn't matter if you've got a mint camera, great ideas. If you're getting soaking wet through, you're going to want to give up and go home. So yeah, I just have to mention that straight off the bat. It is so important, something that I have learned through my own experiences of when I first used to go out, of just wearing shorts and t-shirt, trackies, all sorts of nonsense, and just wanting to go home because I just get soaked wet through. On top of that, another thing to mention is the importance of keeping your gear protected as well, your camera gear. I'm not great for this. I rely probably a little bit too heavily on my Nikon Z7's weatherproofing feature. Thing is, that doesn't make it invincible. I do use kind of off camera a lot. I'll show you now, I've got one on my video camera. See these sort of like waterproof camera covers where they've got kind of like a clear display at the back so you can see your LCD screen. They're pretty decent, and I do use that for my stills camera quite regularly as well. Of course, as I'm sure you all know, you can use lens hoods. I don't really use them that often because I find them to be a bit more trouble than what they're worth. I just use a trusty old microfiber cloth. I always have it on my person. Just wipe my lens. I find that a little bit easier, but that's completely up to you. But yeah, has to be mentioned straight off the bat, the importance of keeping yourself and your gear protected when you're out in such treacherous conditions, to be fair. It's not really that treacherous today, just a little bit of drizzle. But yeah, wonderful conditions. I'm gonna head down this track now, and then we kind of loop back on ourselves. We gain a bit more height, and fingers crossed we can get the camera out. And I'm nice and dry. I'm nice and dry. All right. So as is so often the case on this YouTube channel, I am finding myself in a pretty precarious position in order to photograph some lovely cascades. I am mad for a cascade, if you didn't know already. This is also a good example of how, like I said before, I definitely put a bit too much faith in the old weather sealing of the Nikon Z7, but we'll be fine. This is also a great example of another technique that I use when I'm out photographing in rainy conditions, and that is utilizing my polarizing filter. Funnily enough, I made a video last week about how I'm using my filters a lot less now out on location than what I used to. This is a scenario where I will definitely use my polarizing filter a lot of the time when we've got a load of wet rocks, obviously from all of the rain, and the polarizing filter is just cutting through all of those reflections. I'll put it up on the screen here so that you can see exactly what the polarizing filter is doing here. So as you can see there, keep an eye on the black rocks on the left-hand side. There's a lot of reflection, a lot of glare. As I turn my polarizing filter around, you can see there, it just gets rid of all them reflections of all that glare, and it just gives the image a good bit of punch, added contrast, and it's exactly what I want in this particular composition. So it's a nice simple photograph. I've just zoomed in about 140 millimeters on some of the cascades you can see off in the background there, and shooting at about 1/4 of a second. I absolutely adore this type of photograph, capturing a little bit of movement in the water, and all in all, I hope it comes out all right. But yeah, the polarizing filter is working an absolute treat here. Could be a nice photograph that actually, couldn't it? Yeah, we'll give it a go. Oh, so I have decided to treat the Nikon Z7 to his very own waterproof camera cover. I bet he doesn't know what's going on, staying nice and dry. You know what? I've taken this photograph now, I'll show you it in a sec, but I don't think it's the best. I think what's getting me is that I'm pretty sure there's going to be a better version of this composition just a little bit further up this hill. Something's just telling me that, I don't know. But we're going that way anyway, so we'll have a little peek. But the concept's lovely, and it's a great opportunity to talk about something else that I really try my best to focus on when I'm out taking photographs in the rain, especially in these sorts of landscapes, man. And that is really trying to find some sort of strong, like, foreground or shapes or patterns. Basically, when the conditions are like this, you know, it's particularly overcast as well today. We don't have any light, you know. Sometimes I genuinely feel, especially when you're out in the fells and these sorts of landscapes, that you can very much depend on the light. You know, you can almost point your camera towards the light and then forge your composition, which sounds weird. I can't believe I'm even saying that, because I think composition is the absolute backbone of a good photograph. Sometimes it can work like that with nice light, whereas when it's like this, I do feel like you really have to think a lot more about composition. You know, so for me, that can generally mean, you know, really strong foregrounds, trying to get depth into your photograph. And that's hopefully what I'm getting with this one. Of course, the strong foreground here is this lovely dry stone wall. A few of these grasses down here as well. We've even got a few sort of rocks on this little mound on the left-hand side. But I feel like there's a lot of depth to the photograph. We've even got, right off in the distance, through all of that mist across Little Langdale here, we've got the wonderful shape of side pike, nice and undulating right off in the distance. So I'm hoping I could bring that out in post, hopefully with a little bit of dehaze. But yeah, another really important technique in my opinion when you're photographing in the rain is try and consider really strong foregrounds and try and think a lot more about composition. Yeah, but there might be a better composition a bit further up the hill. We'll see. Guys, I'm flapping around a little bit. There's just some really nice conditions off in the background. We're getting some clouds, some really low clouds that are moving across Pike Oblisco, and I've just quickly managed to, oh, there we go, that's the shot. Quickly managed to get my camera set up here. Fortunately, like you've seen, I didn't put it away, which I never usually do that. Oh, there we go. And it's class. Oh, I love this type of photograph. The clouds are moving across from left to right of Pike Oblisco and just revealing his peak every now and again. pure contrast between, you know, the black of the peak of Pico Blisco and obviously those white clouds that are moving across. There's really nothing to this shot. Zoomed in around 200 millimeters, and I've actually put it into a square crop as well. F13, ISO 64 and 1/25 of a second. Not a clue why it's on F13, but I'm having to react really quickly. And this is the technique like I was talking about at the start, where I use my cloth. Absolutely nothing to this as well, but quickly wipe it, 2-second timer, take it away just as it takes a shot. And I think I've got that. It's a nice square crop. But it also is a great example of something else that I think is so important when you're out taking photographs in the rain. This one, I'll just give you as a wipe, will improve your photography for sure. And that is just keeping an eye on the clouds, man, keeping an eye on the sky, because it's so changeable. You know, sometimes you can have rainy days where the sky's rubbish, it's just overcast. But the point that I'm trying to make is you've got to work to the conditions that you've got. And a lot of the times, especially when you're out in the fells, out in the mountains like we are today, the sky can be your best friend, and you can really, you know, try and use it to your advantage. That goes for any conditions really, you know, always try and work with the conditions that you've been gifted, because there's no point in going around grumpy wanting for something else. You know, sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's more challenging. This sort of photo shoot would be one of the more challenging photo shoots, you know, trying to keep everything dry and whatnot. But you do get beautiful skies a lot of the time. So keep an eye on things up there, you know, you get drama. I always think you get a real feeling of isolation when you're out in these sorts of conditions, again, especially when you're out in the mountains. But yeah, try and keep an eye on the sky. Things change so quickly with them clouds, but a bit of a Marmite photograph, I suppose. But I love these types of abstract shots. Fingers crossed I managed to grab it, because Pico Blisco now, I'll show you, is completely concealed up there. He was up there somewhere, so we've managed to get it. So I'm just coming back past that nice little white gaff where I started the video. Oh, what a spot, man. Imagine just kicking about around here. Unreal. So I've got one more little technique actually that I wanted to mention. I'm on my way back to the van now, but I think this one's class, and that is trying your best to capture rain droplets as they're hitting, you know, the surface of, well, any type of water really. I suppose you want it to be quite still. What's going on? How do I get through this gate? But yeah, if you're at the side of a lake or a tarn, a stream, anything like that where it's quite still, and you use quite a quick shutter speed. I'll pop an image up on the screen here. I captured that at Doverk Water, and that was taken at 1/200th of a second, and I really like that photograph. I think it gets the emotion of rainy conditions across really well. It's also arguably as well, those rain droplets are a really strong foreground element, which is something we spoke about earlier in this video. So a bit of a double whammy, but yeah, definitely gets the emotion across, and it's a brilliant technique to try. And of course, you're only going to get that sort of thing when you're out and about in the rain. So it is quite unique in that sense. But yeah, if anybody, there's the sheep having a little spy at me there, look. If anybody's got any more ideas that you can think of that will help people take better photographs out in the rain, do comment below. I'd love to read some of them. And yeah, I'm going to get myself back to the van now. Thank you so much for your support and for tuning in. And I shall see you on the next adventure. Out.